big tip.
That is
Oh,
taking
yes.
a stand.
Because that's the
Finger
first
giveaway.
Yeah, I'm out in decline right now.
The prosecutor's office should be worried, and I'm sure if they have a ethics division, they are on the phone being like, well, what does this look like?
And
What
when
do
the
we do
judge says
now?
that they don't believe you, like you're making representations in court and the judge doesn't believe you, that is that's huge.
That's
All
a-
you have as a lawyer is your reputation and your
And a
ability
pocket-
to make
no, he has a pocket
representations in
square.
court.
He does have a pocket square and a
Star
pin.
Wars
The pin.
Is
Oh,
that
it
a
was
communist
painted
pin
today.
today?
It kind of looks like the Chinese flag, doesn't
Mayday.
it?
It's Mayday.
It does,
He
but
said,
it
I've
can't-
made my argument to you in good faith, and the court says, I don't believe you. And the court then said, you're saying that this is in good faith, and I don't believe you. That's
Yeah.
not going to go well in motions. I can't wait to watch that.
They'll just cite the record.
Yep. And I think they probably replayed some of the streams because they had exactly what he said. Not ours, because we talk, but they went back and watched and had what he said, which is the benefit of having these things streamed, particularly.
We now
for
know they
defense
didn't
right
eat
now.
lunch.
No, they did not.
Everyone's still hangry.
So you think CNN will hire Binger this year, or do you think they'll wait until like the spring?
Somebody on Twitter did comment that, and I
Earlier
was like,
that there were
oh.
times that evening when Mr. Rosenbaum had threatened you. Is that right?
Yes,
And you described him as wearing a red shirt with a blue bandana. Is that correct?
at certain times.
Yeah. When he threatened you, that's what he was wearing?
I believe the first time he threatened me, he was wearing a red shirt with a blue bandana. The second time, he had it wrapped around his face,
Had what wrapped around his face?
his T-shirt.
So he wasn't wearing a shirt the second time around.
Correct.
And you indicated at one point you thought he had a chain in his hand.
I believe so.
When he made the threat to you with the red shirt on and the blue bandana, did he have the chain in his hand?
I think one of the times he did.
Okay. So which of the times was it?
I can't recall off the top of my head. I think it was the time
I can't recall him.
when
Stop.
he was
They
threatening.
never listen to that. They never listen.
I don't need to know the threat. I just need to know which time it was. Was it the first time or the second time?
I don't remember.
The second time.
What was he wearing the second time?
He was masked. Well, the shirt wrapped around his face.
And he didn't have a shirt on his torso.
Correct.
And you could see when he didn't have a shirt on his torso that he didn't have any gun tucked in his waistband. Correct.
I wasn't paying attention to that. I was behind Joe Anfield there. I was somewhere over there.
So how far away were you from Mr. Rosenbaum when he made the second threat?
By 10, 15 feet. I'm not really certain.
But you were close enough to hear the words out of his mouth.
Yes.
And you took that as a threat to you personally?
I took the first one where he said, if I catch you alone, I'm going to kill you. I took that as a threat to me personally. The second time I took that as a threat to the group.
Can we have that photo, exhibit 138 up on the screen, please? Do you see Mr. Rosenbaum in this picture?
I do.
And he's in the middle of the picture wearing the red shirt with the blue bandana, carrying the plastic bag, correct?
Yes.
Is that the way he looked when he made the first threat to you?
When he said, if I catch you alone, yes.
And he was carrying that plastic bag with him when he made that threat too, correct?
Correct.
How close was he when he made that first threat to you?
Close. I couldn't give you an exact estimate, but he was close, less than 5 feet.
So closer than Madam Court Reporter is to you now?
I'd say about the same, if not a little bit closer.
And you were next to Mr. Balch when that was said?
Correct.
Was anyone else there besides you, Mr. Balch, and Mr. Rosenbaum?
I believe there were other demonstrators around.
And you've seen in this trial that there's been a lot of video footage of that night, correct?
Yes.
And you've seen in this trial that there's a lot of video footage of you that night, correct?
Yes.
You'd agree with me that there's no video of either one of these threats, correct?
I don't know if somebody filmed it that I'm aware of right now.
You're not aware of any, are you?
I'm not.
So Mr. Rosenbaum looked like that at the time of the first threat, but then looked different at the time of the second threat. Is that right?
Yes.
And did you say he was carrying the chain when he made the first threat or the second one?
The second.
And he was still carrying that plastic bag the second time?
Yes.
That plastic bag has a clear side to it that allows you to see inside of it, right?
Sort of. I didn't really look into the bag.
So you didn't know what was in the bag at all?
I didn't.
Did he swing the chain at you when he made the second threat?
He did not.
Did he physically touch you when he made the second threat?
No, he didn't.
In fact, that entire evening, he never once touched your body, did he?
He grabbed my gun when he attacked me.
And that's why I asked the question the way I did. He never touched your body that night, correct?
He didn't touch me physically.
My gun was
And
attached to me by a
neither the
strap.
first or the second time did he run at you or charge at you or anything like that, did he?
He didn't chase me.
He didn't even do anything physically aggressive to you, did he?
No.
He just said some words.
Yes.
And that chain that he had in his hand, he never did anything to physically threaten you with that chain, correct?
Yes.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
And other than the chain that you've described, at no point in the evening did you ever see Joseph Rosenbaum with any other type of weapon, correct?
Not that I saw.
Never saw him with a gun,
Correct.
never saw him with a knife,
Correct.
never saw him with a bat,
Correct.
never saw him with a club.
Correct.
Just a chain.
How far apart in time were these two threats that you say Mr. Rosenbaum made to you?
I want to say I can't give you a definite time. I wasn't looking at my clock, but I'd say within the same hour.
And both of those threats occurred while you were on the 59th Street property?
The second threat happened at the corner, and the first threat happened towards Ruther Central High School.
Okay, could you use that laser pointer and point out on that map where the first threat occurred?
The first threat happened right here in front of the building.
So you're pointing at a location that is by the 59th Street car source on the south side of that property, along the building and Sheridan Road on the west side of the road. Would that be accurate?
Yes.
And you said there was a second threat within an hour after that, correct?
Yes.
Where was that threat at?
It was somewhere over here, I remember, like on the other side of the property towards Ruther Central.
More towards the northeast corner of that same property.
Correct.
But you were still on the car source property when that second threat was allegedly made, correct?
Yes.
Did you remember what Mr. Rosenbaum had said to you later on when he's confronting you at the 63rd Street car source?
I took a mental picture of his face. When he said those threats, I recognized that was him that said that when he started chasing me.
So when you are running away from him at the 63rd Street car source, you're thinking to yourself, this is the guy who had made a threat to me earlier. Is that fair to say?
I was thinking this is the guy that said if he catches me alone, he'll kill me. As I'm running away from him.
The reason I asked Mr. Rittenhouse is, how did you know it was the same guy when he's changed the way he looks?
His appearance, the shorts, his height.
But in both of those instances that you've described, he's got something covering his face, either the blue bandana in one instance or the red shirt in a different instance.
It's
correct?
irrelevant.
He was wearing the red shirt when he chased me around his head.
So you remember that from the second time that you say he threatened you.
Yes.
And you thought to yourself, this is the same guy.
Yes.
He was the mean midget pedophile.
So when you eventually were getting to the point where you're going down to the 63rd Street car source right before the shooting, you recognized him as you're following down the street, didn't you?
I didn't follow Mr. Rosenbaum down the street.
He was in front of you. You know that now, right?
I know that now.
But you didn't see him ahead of you as you're walking down there that night?
No, it was dark out.
But you, at some point as you get close to the 63rd Street,
it's
car
fair.
source, start running towards that lot.
It was moon bright.
Towards the fire.
Get the
that was
almanac.
at Miramax.
And Mr. Rosenbaum is running ahead of you, isn't he?
I don't believe so.
But you decided you needed to run because of the fire in the Duramax?
Yes.
Why? What was so urgent?
It was a fire.
There's fires all over the place. So
I was getting to the fire to put it out.
we'll get back to that in a second. You indicated
Why?
while you were at the 59th Street car source, you said you put out a fire at the church next door. Is that right?
Yes.
Did you hear Joanne Fiedler's testimony yesterday that when you guys went over there, somebody had put some sort of flammable liquid on the door? Did you hear that testimony?
I did. I believe that was referring to the Ruther Central High School.
Okay, so when she described it as happening at the church, you think she was getting it confused?
Yes.
Say yes? Okay. So whatever happened with this flammable liquid on the door, the point is some other group, some other people put that out before you even got there.
Correct.
Why did you feel that you should go around off the 59th Street car source property and put out fires?
Why questions?
To make sure my community didn't get burnt down and help.
And when you say your community, you mean Kenosha?
Yes.
Again, you're from Antioch. You're not living in Kenosha at this time when this all happens, right?
Good. Let him explain more.
That's right, schmuck.
Kenosha, but you didn't, right?
My residence was in Antioch.
But you felt like you wanted to do things to protect this community. Fair?
The community that I was part of, yes.
And you felt like it was appropriate for you to take matters into your own hands to put out fires, for example.
To put out fires by using a fire extinguisher, yes.
Even though they weren't on the 59th Street property, correct?
Correct.
And were there other things that you decided it would be appropriate for you to go out there and take care of off the 59th Street property that night?
I was walking around and asking people if they needed medical help.
So you felt that you wanted to go out and help people, help protect people, help people feel better, treat people, things like that, even off the 59th Street property.
Provide first aid.
Normally in our regular society, that's something that we call 911 for, right?
Oh my
Normally,
God.
yes.
Where are we headed?
Where are we headed? What the hell is this?
Why isn't the
He's
fence
reminding-
objecting?
He's reminding everyone that the cops had all, they weren't doing anything about the rioting and the arson.
Our relative.
Hold on 1 second.
Well, I'll let you pursue it, but
And that's exactly how these.
Let Kyle
shootings
keep
happen.
talking about how he's a great hero who's going out, putting out fires and helping people with medical, please.
that's
Without
Yes.
permission.
And
Without
responding to
permission.
a 911 call.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Normally, we would, if there's a fire, if there's somebody committing a crime, you call 911, right?
Normally, yes.
You didn't feel like you could do that night, correct?
I don't think that I saw from the nights prior that the fire department wasn't responding to put out fires.
Well, the nights before, there were businesses
He's
on
gonna-
fire along
now he's
22nd
gonna argue with
Avenue.
him.
There's the car source
Schmuck.
Yeah, he's agreeing with
Large
them. Here's all the fires that were happening.
property fire
Right.
on the prior nights, correct?
Yes.
On the night of August 25th, we didn't have any fires like that. We just had a couple dumpsters, smaller things, right?
That I saw, yes. That I saw, yes.
But regardless of how big the fire is, you felt that night that calling 911 was not an option, correct?
I was there to put out the
I
fire. I
didn't
was there.
feel that if I called 911, anyone would show up
Which is why you decided to take care of it yourself, correct?
to provide first aid and put out fires.
To do the things that normally we would expect the police or the fire department to do.
Yeah, we see where you're going.
Asked and
We
answered.
see where you're
Asked and
going.
Yeah.
To
Just
help.
like you thought you were a policeman.
I thought the prosecution wanted to say he thought he was playing
Please move
video
that
games. Now he
microphone
wants to
a
say
little
he was
closer so we can make
playing
sure we hear everything he's
police.
You
I
can,
mean,
you can
pick a
adjust it
lane.
if you need to move it a little closer. Thank you.
He's painting Kyle as a superhero.
Interrupt for just a moment. How's the temperature? How many are comfortable the way things are?
How's the temperature in your
Kyle's
body,
very
Binger? Are you room
comfortable.
temperature yet? You're getting killed.
Kyle's very
Ice
comfortable.
cubes, there's nothing to worry about.
Anybody want some cookies?
Going different.
The jury must look bored. No, the jury must
You
look. There's something the jury's doing that made the judge ask
To
that.
Kenosha that night, armed with the AR-15 and no other ways to physically defend yourself, correct?
I had an AR-15, yes.
Other than that, you had no other weapons or devices.
You didn't bring enough weapons?
These hands.
Correct?
Yes.
Great.
There's an interview in which you say you're not carrying anything non-lethal. Do you recall that?
I do.
You indicated in response to one of your attorney's questions that there was no friction with the protesters that night. Did I understand you correctly?
By friction, you mean
Well, I'm using your words, sir. I heard you say in response to your attorney's question that there
What was
was
the
no
question?
friction with the protesters that night. Did I hear you correctly?
yes.
And you're describing what you observed when you were at the 59th Street car source. Fair enough?
Yes.
So based on your several hours at that location, it seemed to you as though the crowd of, however you want to describe them, they've been called rioters.
Breathing was Kyle,
protesters,
guys. Chill out.
demonstrators, and you, things were fine.
Just loud.
No tension, no friction, no nothing. Fair to say?
For the most part, other than Mr. Rosenbaum,
He was the only one
that threatened, yes.
that you saw.
Yes.
Can we please play exhibit number 18 at the 1 hour and 22 second and 22 minute and 14 second mark?
Or it was Binger. When you hear those big breathing sounds, that's coming from their mics.
It's Kraus.
I'm going to be up all night with the summary judgment.
Yeah. We should
This
just
was
start
not
writing it
supposed-
ourselves. Give him a hand.
I've written it enough times.
Yeah, someone walked by outside with a plate of spaghetti. Kraus smelled it and then breathed in heavily. That was that sound on the mic.
This had better be the most
Yeah,
damning
now
video
Kraus
ever
has
at this
so
point.
many more failings than that.
I hope he shows a video of someone other than Rosenbaum threatening someone. That would be great. That'd be helpful to the prosecution, I think.
Right.
So you were out there because even police and firemen wouldn't respond to protect the community.
Isn't it
That's
true that you were
basically
under
what was
threat from
said.
many, many people that night and not just Rosenbaum?
The rundown live, Kyle Rittenhouse armed locals.
And
police.
militia are up there.
Militia video. The militia video.
Where? Oh, dumpster fire. Just a dumpster fire. Hey, it's just like the year, man. Yeah, right.
The prosecution's
If
case
2020 is a
Oh,
blunt, it would be just
This
a
is the guy
fucking
who wants a
stamp.
doobie.
Yeah, it would just be stand and see, man. I could use a doobie right now. All right, let's.
Finger, could you use a doobie right now?
He's going to bring this guy up as belligerent.
Guys, what? Fuck around and find out. Hey. Reel in. Reel in. Don't cause problems when there's none here.
Don't cause problems.
When there's none here.
Yeah, that's true. Just stay on your property. Otherwise, there's way too many of them.
Can we object to this?
It's already come in though.
I have to agree with her.
This isn't Kyle's friction with them.
I was going to say, he's not even in this video, is he?
I have to agree with her that they shouldn't be on the street.
Kyle said he didn't have any friction with protesters. This isn't his
They're just
friction.
protecting their property.
Okay.
Kyle's about to
He brings the
This
dumpster.
video should have been objected to all the way back, and should be objected to again. It's not relevant material. It's just prejudicial, unfair prejudicial.
Yeah, if you guys could switch him out. Just somebody's a loose cannon. He's got a lot of rage. He's the wrong thing. This whole crowd burns you guys alive.
All this hearsay being let in is ridiculous.
Protect your
Let
property.
in
Get
so
respect in
much.
that. Just keep it there.
They did bring the rundown guy in though, who was talking at one point. They didn't bring the fuck around to find out guy though.
Dude, he's just trying to protect his property.
Yeah, there should be an objection. We don't see Kyle in this video anywhere. This is
Yep.
irrelevant.
They
You
went
will,
it in
though,
so
but
There he
long
is.
ago,
Here he
it's
is.
already been marked. Get out of the street. He's pulling a dumpster out of the street.
Did you consider that a
That's their
YouTuber asked
property.
you to stay on your property?
So much
You think
authority.
that looks like friction?
Kyle wasn't having friction.
A little bit.
And you witnessed that, didn't you?
I didn't witness what Mr. Collette did. I didn't see that.
But you saw the reaction from the crowd, right?
No.
Yeah, a
I
little
couldn't.
bit. I wasn't really paying much attention to that.
Would you agree with me that it seems that the crowd was reacting
Objection
to
calls for speculation.
members
No.
of your group going out in the street
No.
and trying to interfere with what was going on off your property?
Bring the objection now.
Object.
These
No,
defense
happy
lawyers don't
about
object.
it.
They really don't object
And
to
in
anything.
fact, Kriston Harris, who made this video, specifically told you to stay on your property and not go out on the street and try and put out
He wasn't
fires.
talking-
or
I didn't see him
interfere with
talking to
any of that
Kyle, did
stuff.
you?
Just protect your property. Isn't that what he told you?
He does right after that clip.
I believe so. I was just going to grab the garbage can, the dumpster that belonged to the car source that was on the car source property.
This is before you headed south towards the 63rd Street car source, right?
Yes.
This is before you decided to go down there with a fire extinguisher, correct?
Yes.
This is before you shot Mr. Rosenbaum, Mr. Huber, Mr. Grosskreutz, and at the person that was jumping over you, correct?
Yes.
You mean kicked his head?
So you knew
This was quintessential
that this was
hearsay,
a
by the
crowd
way.
that would not react very favorably to you going out there and trying to put out fires or interfere with any of that stuff. You knew that.
Jesus.
I didn't.
Even after that incident, you still didn't have any idea that this is a crowd that's not going to take it very well.
It seems like they were more mad at the part of him screaming what he screamed after, not putting out the fire. That's what it seemed like to me.
And he screams to them, fuck around and find out, right?
That's what he screamed to them.
After they had just tried to light a dumpster on fire.
Why isn't this
Right.
objectionable?
So what did you
It is. They're just
interpret that
sitting.
to me?
I didn't hear it.
I don't know. I didn't witness in the time.
There
I
you go.
grabbed
Boom.
the dumpster a minute after and tried to pull it onto the property.
Because it seems to me he's saying, you
Seems
light
to
stuff
me-
on fire and I'm going to
Who's testifying?
use my gun.
Your impression's irrelevant.
Thank you.
I'll withdraw.
Finally.
Finally.
Oh, he's there.
And then withdraw. He's remembering his first year of law school.
It
got
takes them a while to wake up, but
You got a prosecutor standing up for the right of
Ask your
rioters.
questions. That's fine. Go ahead.
It was shortly after that incident that we just watched where you were interviewed by Richie McGinnis, correct?
Yes.
And you said you've never heard of him, never dealt with him before this night.
I have not.
So why did you talk to him?
He seemed like a nice guy.
Did he introduce himself as from the media?
He didn't specifically said, "Hey, I'm from the media." He was like, "Hey, do you want to do an interview?"
And when you
I
heard
like
him
that
ask you
YouTube's
to do an
media now.
interview,
Thank
you
you.
didn't think that meant he's from the media?
No, it's not what I said. I said he didn't specifically say he was from the media.
Okay, but you assumed when he says I'm going to interview that he's from the media, right?
Yes,
And
'Cause
did
you
he
wanna
tell
be
you he's
famous,
from the Daily
right?
Caller?
he did not.
So you didn't know what media company he worked for,
Correct.
YouTube.
but you agreed to have him interview you on camera, correct?
Yes.
Can we please play exhibit number 16?
Don't you usually call 911 when the media someone asks you to do an interview?
Binger will.
McGinnis wasn't holding a gun. He wasn't holding a club, right? He wasn't holding a knife.
He had a cell
up there?
phone.
Did he have a
He's not
tactical
blogger.
nuke?
He's not a biased blogger. That's what
Maybe he had a tank in his pocket.
Or he was just glad to see him.
Do we know? Have we seen? Oh, we haven't seen this.
Here we
before.
go.
Wasn't where I was going, but fair.
You do it, obviously you're armed and you're from this business.
Hand in gloves. Really?
Audio.
Nope.
And what about these other folks? I see there's a lot of people who are armed as well. Gotcha. And then what about these guys up on the roof?
That's the court.
The court's boomering the audio, by the
You
way.
indicate that you have your AR-15 to protect yourself, correct?
Yes.
And
I don't see
you
the
indicate that you're
prosecution
gonna run
offering
out there
transcripts of these
and
videos to the jury like
treat
they're supposed
anyone
to.
who needs medical help, correct?
Yes.
Were you going to bring the gun along when you did that?
Yes.
To defend yourself while you're treating someone?
If I needed to defend myself while treating somebody, yes.
If you didn't think there was friction with the crowd and you're out there trying to help, why did you expect there'd be any danger?
From the previous nights when I saw people being assaulted,
Were they medics being assaulted?
I don't know who they were. I know one of them was just trying to put out a fire at his business.
So you saw someone put out a fire who was trying to put out a fire who got assaulted.
Yes.
But if you're going to help people, why would you expect anyone would try and hurt you?
Because they do.
I don't know. Somebody did try to hurt me, and I was helping people.
Well, you're talking about later on.
Yes.
Okay, but at this moment in time, this is before the shootings.
Yes.
This is before you cross 60th, before you deal with Rosenbaum, Huber, Grosskreutz, all that, right?
Yes.
So at this moment in time, you don't think there's a hostile crowd. You're there to help people, and yet you're going to run out there with the AR-15. I don't understand why you felt.
We don't care what you understand.
If you're out in what you think is a friendly crowd, helping them.
Objection.
I
mean, it's clear he doesn't understand his
I didn't
trial.
think they were hostile. I didn't think they
Where's
were
the question?
hostile towards us.
Okay, so they're not hostile to you, and you're going to go help them. Why do you need the gun when you go out there?
You didn't just show a video of a riot taking place?
I had to protect myself because somebody attacked me.
Why would you think anybody would do that?
I don't know.
They did, didn't they?
But you clearly planned on it. You were prepared for it. You thought it was going to happen.
No, I didn't.
That's the whole reason you brought the gun, isn't it?
I brought the gun to protect myself.
Exactly. Because you thought, you personally, were going to be in danger, right?
Not necessarily.
I don't understand.
Because you're an idiot.
You're going to bring it to protect yourself.
You don't.
So you thought you were going to be in danger, right?
I didn't think I would be put into a situation where I would have to defend myself.
You said that the people around you on
Deterrence
that
is the
property
best answer.
and the people up on the roof were there to protect you. That's what you said in the video, right?
Yes.
You meant when you go out in the crowd, they're going to protect you, right?
Watch over me, yes.
Watch over and protect you, right?
Yes.
Again, because you expected that if you go out in that crowd to try and provide medical service, you thought you were going to get attacked?
They were to watch me. They were on the roof to watch me, and if somebody was to attack me in their view, they could say, "Hey, Kyle, watch out."
They've got AR-15s.
Yes.
We talked earlier about the fact that the AR-15, you can't use deadly force to protect the building, right?
Correct.
The AR-15 was to protect you, right? That's what you just said.
Not the AR-15. I said they could shout down to me and be like, "Hey, Kyle, watch out."
This is dangerous.
So they're just carrying around the AR-15s for no reason?
I don't know why they're carrying around the AR-15.
Because it calls for speculation. Why is someone else doing something?
Can we play?
How does he
that
know?
person.
This is the end. At the end of this video is where you invite Mr. McGinnis
Let me just send
to
Richards an
follow
email that
you
says
and
objection.
Ryan Balch, correct?
Yes.
And you invited him to do that because you want.
Set it to repeat every 15 minutes.
Your attorney was asking you questions that you wanted him to film you while you were out in the crowd doing your thing. Okay.
Yeah, I said it was okay for him to film me.
Let's play Exhibit 17, please.
It's going to be with Yellow Pants Man.
The last 5 minutes has been the worst 5 minutes of the trial for Kyle.
I think so.
It's his lawyer's fault.
That's
He
why you
should
don't
be
put him up.
objecting.
And yeah,
That's why you don't put him on the stand if you're not going to protect him and object. Literally.
Yes,
object. Sound is terrible.
He just asked you. So you're a certified
He
EMT.
said no, from what
And
I
you
heard.
said
but-
yes, correct?
Yes,
That was a
Oh,
lie,
okay.
correct?
I'm not an EMT.
You're not a certified EMT. You're not an EMT of any kind. You weren't on that night, correct?
Yes,
So you lied to him, correct?
I told him I was. I told him I was an EMT, but I wasn't.
And you knew you were being interviewed by someone in the media when you told that lie, didn't you?
Objection.
Yes.
People lie to the media.
No,
Weird.
credibility.
Yeah. No, that's why you don't bring him on the stand.
Yep.
Thank you for your service. I appreciate your service.
this is undoing so much of the good work that they've done over the last few days.
Can we back up 10 seconds, please? And then just pause right there. We just heard a voice say something to you, Mr. Balch, about people throwing rocks or something along those lines. I don't really need to know exactly what they said, but did you hear that voice?
The police officer from the Bearcat. Yes.
That's what I was going to ask. That's one of the law enforcement officers in that armored vehicle that you're walking past, correct?
Yes.
And this, what we're watching in this video happens a few minutes after those same Bearcats had come to the 59th Street property and handed you some bottles of water, correct?
Yes.
And they say to you something to the effect of, "We appreciate you guys." Do you remember that?
I do.
That's when you were on the 59th Street property and you were acting like you were guarding that property, correct?
Yes.
So how did it make you feel when the police are letting you pass the lines, they're warning you about people throwing rocks, they're handing out bottles of water, they're telling you that they appreciate you? How'd that make you feel?
I didn't really care. I was thankful for the water because I had OC stuff, gas in my eyes, but I didn't really notice or care.
It didn't make you feel like they approved of what you were doing?
No.
It didn't make you feel like you're emboldened now to go out there and act on their behalf?
No.
Let's play the video here, please. You yelled something friendly. I'm not sure how many times, but you yelled friendly out.
Yes.
This is, if I can use the pointer, you are crossing on the west side of Sheridan Road. You are crossing south across 60th Street here, heading across the police line, which had barricaded across 60th and Sheridan. Fair?
Yes.
You understood at this moment that you are now entering a crowd of whatever you want to call them, protesters, demonstrators. Your attorneys called them rioters or looters or whatever. That's
You called them friends.
who you're going to now be part of. You're going to be in that crowd, right?
I was walking through. I announced myself as friendly and that I was there to help them.
Because you had to do that to warn these people that, hey, I'm on your side, right?
I told them that I was friendly.
Because if you didn't say that, you were worried they would see you as hostile, correct?
A lot of them are idiots.
Yeah, ask your question. I'm trying to
Absolutely.
understand.
Yeah, I don't understand
If
what you're getting
You're
at.
going to go up to Dominic Black or Ryan Balch. You don't need to tell them you're friendly because they know that you're friends, right? We don't tell this to our friends.
Yeah.
We say friendly to people that aren't our friends, people that might be hostile to us, right?
Why are you
Yeah,
testifying?
I said it to them because they were throwing
the judge
rocks
lets
at me, and when I told them I was friendly, they stopped throwing rocks at me.
And to be accurate, they were
The
throwing with the
police.
Bearcats, not at you.
Yeah.
One of them hit one of the armored vehicles and bounced off towards you and Mr. Balch, right?
Yeah.
It didn't do any damage to that armored vehicle, did it?
Not that I'm aware of.
I mean, can you imagine trying to
matter.
harm an armored vehicle with a rock? That's pretty hard to do, right?
Can you imagine is an
They weren't-
objection?
no one was throwing
Yes.
rocks at you.
Can you imagine asking these
Kind of
questions?
Ricochet.
I can get away with it.
Yeah.
And he's getting away with
So
it.
you wanted to
Where's
let these people
Richards?
know that, hey, I might look like I'm on the other side, but I'm really friendly. Fair?
I wasn't on any side, but
I didn't say that. I said that you.
Yes, you
made it
did.
clear to them.
You
That
certainly
was what
wanted
you
to
were worried
imply
about,
it.
right?
You're
You
asking
said
for
friendly?
someone else's
And I
impression?
notice you looking over at your attorney a lot. Can you?
Object.
I'm trying to.
Because he can't believe his attorney's not objecting.
When you are doing.
He's hoping his attorney's going to wake up.
Mr. Binger, and I'm behind him. He accused Mr. Rittenhouse of looking at his attorney. Does he want him to look at the ceiling?
Oh, this is what they object to?
Yeah, seriously.
You, at this very moment, announced yourself as friendly
Which is defending
because
himself
you were
rather
worried
than Kyle.
that the people on the other side of that street would see you as hostile. Fair?
Mike,
I don't. I
Asked and
can't
answered.
tell you how I
Objection.
think they would see me, but I just told
There
them.
you go. Speculation.
And I want to make sure you understand my question because I
No.
was asking you what you thought when you
They
said
thought.
this. You said you announced yourself as friendly because you thought to yourself at that very moment, I'm walking into a group that is hostile
In
to
the
me.
state's prior
Isn't that true?
testimony.
It looked hostile. They were throwing rocks at the
That's what he said.
squad car, not the squad cars, the armored police cars.
And you felt it was necessary to tell them friendly, friendly,
Asked and
friendly,
answered.
so that they wouldn't do anything to you. Fair?
Yes.
They're hyper emotional and irrational.
Let's continue the video.
Did you say friendly because you didn't want people to throw rocks at you?
Well, his point is that he's knowingly walking into a war zone, which is what agitates them. That's what he's trying to get the jury to feel.
There's a person that comes up to you carrying a skateboard. Do you see that?
I do.
And he's got some fire extinguishers slung over his shoulder.
Yes.
And he says something to you about something putting out fires. And you respond, they know. Did I understand what you said correctly there? They know?
That's what I just heard, but I don't remember that interaction very well, other than helping the guy after with the shoulder.
And that's going to come up in a second here. But when you're talking to this individual about the fire extinguishers, do you remember anything about that conversation?
It's hard to recall, but I think it was about fires, that they were putting out fires.
Okay. And when you said they know, who's they?
I don't recall.
Do you have any idea what you were talking about?
I don't.
It seems to me, Mr. Rittenhouse, that this person is suggesting he's going to go put out some fires, and you're sort of assuring him that you don't need to. It's okay. Would that be a fair interpretation or no?
No.
Okay. But you don't remember what was going on.
I don't remember the conversation, what it was about, other than fires, and I don't recall it.
This is one of the guys in the group that you later got your fire extinguisher from, right?
No.
We'll get to that in a second. Let's continue.
We'll follow this line of questioning at a later date.
Oh, everyone ever heard nobody? It's a little spicy, that's all. Yeah, that's awesome.
Such bad audio.
I think someone's got some medical weed, I'll tell you that.
You're walking around asking people in this crowd if they need medical. And you talked earlier about treating a couple, I don't know, somebody at the 59th Street car source, right?
Minor injuries.
Minor injuries. When you were walking around outside that property, when you're out in the street announcing what you're announcing, did anybody respond and say, yeah, I need help from you?
Yes.
When was that?
I don't recall an exact time, but somebody cut their finger open, and I gave them some gauze and some bandage tape.
Was that before or after this? Do you remember?
Before.
Where physically did that happen?
Please say on their finger. Please say on their finger.
And was this a situation where you announced or yelled out that you could help, and then somebody said, "Yeah, I need some help"? Was that what went on in that situation?
Yes.
As you're walking along here, from this point until the end, till you shoot Rosenbaum and Huber and Grosskreutz, no one in this crowd ever says to you, "Yeah, I do need medical. Come over and help me." Correct?
Yes.
That's correct?
Yes.
Okay. Let's continue. This is the individual who accuses you of pointing your gun at them, right?
Yes.
And he says that you did so when he was on a vehicle, right?
Yes.
And in fact, he had been at the 59th Street car source location, climbing on, sitting on, jumping on one of the vehicles in that lot, hadn't he?
Remember in a
Nothing I'm aware
second
of.
that Kyle just admitted to lying on the stand.
Joanne Fiedler testified to that, but
On the stand?
No,
I don't remember seeing
on the
him
stand he admitted
at
to
that
lying.
location.
Sorry.
about being an
accuses
EMT.
you of that
Very
here,
big
To a
difference.
YouTuber.
and you tell him basically, yeah, I did point the gun at you, right?
I shrugged it off and said, yeah, I did, sarcastically, meaning I didn't, but I just didn't want a confrontation. So I was like, I did, and walked away.
Why did you lie to him?
I didn't lie
He
to him.
just told you.
I was using sarcasm.
The words you said, yeah, I did. Those weren't true, were they?
Objection. Asked and answered.
Oh, there's an objection.
Over sarcasm. This is a murder trial.
Sarcasm, he says it's a lie. And the cross-examine on it. Go ahead.
When you told that individual, yeah, I did point a gun at you, that wasn't true, was it?
I didn't point a gun at him.
So why did you react to him that way in that particular moment?
I thought that would be the best way to avoid conflict. I just said, yeah, I did, sarcastically, like, I don't know what you're talking about.
What conflict were you trying to avoid?
Any conflict, if he would have got, like, he was
Are you
accusing me of something I
racist?
didn't do, so I thought the best thing the best thing to do would be to walk away instead of getting into some argument. So,
But you didn't just walk away. You said to him sarcastically, yeah, I did,
I said sarcastically,
Asked and answered.
did, and walked away.
because you were worried about a conflict. What conflict were you worried about?
Jesus
verbal
Christ,
after
I
that.
still not believe this.
This individual is clearly expressing to you that he's unhappy because he thought
How is this
you pointed your
relevant?
gun at him, correct?
Yes.
And you can understand why someone would be upset when you point an AR-15 at them, correct?
Yes.
You knew that
That
even
calls for
before this,
speculation.
right?
Yes.
In fact, back at the 59th Street car source, that crowd that you described as not having any friction, many of that crowd got upset because they thought people in your group were pointing their laser pointers at them. Do you remember that?
I saw it in the videos, but I don't know what other people were doing.
I'm not saying anybody
it calls
actually
for
was.
speculation.
I'm saying the crowd was upset, and you knew that. You heard them complaining, correct?
Object to
Watching
any.
the videos, yes.
And even at that time, that night, you heard the crowd upset because they thought members of your group were pointing their
They
laser
thought?
pointers at them.
What do you
Objection.
think they
That's
thought about what
speculation.
you think?
Objection.
Sort of, yes or no. I remember Ryan Balch saying something,
This isn't even interesting anymore.
telling
I hate
people to not
Richards.
pointing at lasers.
Yeah,
before
same.
Something. I don't really remember that.
I don't know what
Ryan
other people
Balch
were
was telling
thinking.
the people in your group to stop doing that,
The people on the roof
who were part of your group, right?
that were there, yes.
So
Did his lawyers go for lunch?
you know
Seems
we're
like it,
talking
yeah.
about laser pointers. We're talking about the sight at the end of some guns that helps almost like this, right? If somebody
Stop
does
it.
this at me, that could be someone pointing a gun, correct?
It could be seen as that.
That's what
Objection.
Charles was complaining about,
Speculation.
right?
Yeah.
Stop this.
So
Comatose
you knew
defense
from that
strategy.
crowd incident, and you
Hearsay.
certainly knew from this incident that when people have guns
The
pointed
crowd
at
is
them,
saying, "Who the fuck's the
it
crowd?"
can really escalate the
We
situation.
need Schroeder to object.
This is calling
Yeah,
for so much speculation.
Yeah, I don't think anybody had lasers on their guns. I think
Yeah,
As
but
devil's
let's go
advocate,
back
though,
to your
they
group
can
at
see the
59th
jury and
Street,
we
'cause You
can't.
actually didn't know any of those
Yes.
people.
So they
other
may
than
be asleep.
Dominic and Nick Smith,
Or
right?
annoyed.
yes.
You had just
Mhm.
met Ryan Balch for
That's
the first
fairly
time 3 or 4 hours before this video, right?
Yeah.
You had just met Jason Lakowski for the first time, just actually only a few minutes before this, right? Because he didn't get in until 10:45.
Correct.
So at this point in the video, I don't know, this is probably about 11:30 or so at night.
I met him about 35 minutes prior to that.
And probably had only spent, 10, 15 minutes at all in the same location as Jason Lakowski before you walk south?
Yes.
So again, Jason Lakowski was someone you'd never met before that night,
Correct.
and you barely spent any time with him that night, correct?
Correct.
And of course, the people up on the roof, other than Dominic Black and Nick Smith, you didn't know any of them before that night either, correct?
I knew Dominic Black and Nick Smith, but the people on
I misspoke their
yeah,
names.
sorry.
Dominic Black and Nick Smith.
I knew those are the two people I knew.
If you're gonna ask about
Other than that, you didn't know anyone else before this night. Fair?
Correct.
Now, when this little interaction that we've just watched happens, you're still walking with Ryan Balch, aren't you?
I'm not. I thought I was at the time, but seeing hindsight view, I'm not.
He literally went for
When
snacks.
you decided to cross 60th with Ryan Balch, you two talked about the fact that if you get separated, to go back to the 59th Street car source, right?
I don't recall that conversation happening.
But you tried to do that, didn't you?
I did.
Because you felt like if I'm out here by myself, that's not good. I need to head back, right?
Yes.
And you also talked to Ryan Balch about the fact that when you get out into this crowd, keep your mouth shut. Don't antagonize them. Didn't Ryan talk to you about that?
No, we didn't talk about that.
So at this very moment, you're telling us you've lost track of Ryan Balch.
A little bit ahead, but around that time, yes.
Let's continue the video.
What, yesterday? Today?
You have just walked off the screen, heading east across Sheridan Road to the Ultimate gas station, correct?
Yes.
And at that point in time, you don't know where Ryan Balch is, correct?
When I stop and look around, yes.
And instead of deciding to head back at this point, you go over to Ultimate Gas and you talk to some folks over there. Fair?
I walk over to the Ultimate gas station. I walk around and I try to see if I can find Mr. Balch.
And you couldn't do that?
No.
So then you decided to approach the police line and cross back, correct?
Yes.
Because you decided your best course of action at that point would be to return to the same group that you'd been with, correct?
Yes.
Now, at that moment in time, the police had pushed everybody south of 60th, right?
Sorta. I don't really know if there were.
How do you know what the police are doing?
I said south of 60th. Let's go back a little bit. We watched that interview with Richie McGinnis where he first comes
Can
up.
someone
to
get Richards a Coke?
Right? You remember that?
Yes.
Twix.
You're standing there at
Or
the
some Coke.
property, aren't you? And
Red
he
Bull.
talks to you about what you're going to do, and you're going to run out and help people, things like that, right?
Yes.
At that point, the police
Take
had
away his
already
pillow.
passed with all the Bearcats and MRAPs and armored vehicles, right?
That's what it looks like. Yes.
And they had established a line on 60th and Sheridan, correct?
Yes.
And they pushed all of the protesters, demonstrators, rioters, whatever you want to call them, all of them south of 60th, correct?
I don't know if I can honestly answer all of them. I don't know. I believe there are some people still north down Sheridan and in the put across the street.
So were there, I mean, we saw a crowd earlier of lots of protesters out in the street. That group, the numbers had dwindled quite a bit.
Yes.
Okay. So after the police move everybody south of 60th, there's no more actual threat to the 59th Street car source, is there?
I don't know.
Well, at that moment in time, what imminent threats did you
Objection calls
see
for spec. Oh,
to the 59th Street?
I couldn't see the car source.
I don't know.
Do you remember seeing any protesters out in the street in front of the 59th Street car source after the police pushed everybody south of 60th?
I believe there were some across the street, but not many. I can't recall completely.
And that was just 2 or 3 people, right?
I don't know how many.
Can't
people.
recall completely.
None of those people came across the street to the 59th Street car source, did they?
I don't know. If they did, I would have walked off by now.
So you didn't see them come across the street.
I did not.
Fair to say that after the police pushed everybody south of 60th, you never saw any people threatening that property, correct?
I didn't see anybody.
And your goal that night, you took it upon yourself to protect the 59th Street property, correct?
The owners asked.
Sure. But you were going to station yourself at that property to try and protect it from damage, fair?
The car source locations, yes.
And once the police had pushed everybody south of that, there was no more danger.
At that car source location, yes.
Okay. So why not go home at that point?
That contradicts another witness, by the way.
Because the police were still pushing people back, and then they were backing up, and I was still helping people provide medical first aid.
There you go.
Okay, so the police had established the line at 60th with their Bearcats at that point, right?
Yes.
And there was no indication that they were going to reverse and back up and move back north again that you saw,
How
correct?
do you know what the
No,
police are about to do?
They did it earlier in the night where they did the same thing.
Right. But this is at 11:30, 11:40 at night, and they've established that, the police have established that line. And as far as you can tell, it's going to stay there, right?
Objection calls for
And
speculation.
you talked about trying to provide medical help, but there's no one around that needs medical help at the 59th Street car source at that point, is there?
Not that I noticed.
So you don't have any purpose there anymore, do you?
Other than
So why not go home?
because I was going to help people provide first aid and medical assistance.
But that wasn't.
How many more times can we ask this?
You were there that night to protect the 59th
As many as
Street
Richards
car
will sleep
source.
through.
It was one of the reasons I was there. Part of my reasons of being there was to protect the car source properties and provide.
Can we
first
call
aid
for a
medical
wellness check
assistance.
on the defense attorneys?
So you went out in the crowd, like we see in this video, looking for anyone who needed your help.
If somebody asked if somebody said they need help, I would have helped them.
So
Help your defense attorneys. I think they've
why
passed
go
out.
over Bulge?
Because you're safer and better in pairs when there's somebody else that's also with you.
So when you crossed 60th, you were worried about your safety,
A little bit.
even though you think this is not a hostile crowd and you're there to help them. You were still worried about your safety. That's why you needed Bulge to back you up.
You
Right.
bastard.
I said I didn't think they were hostile towards me. I didn't say that they weren't a hostile crowd.
Good.
So
Finally.
here's my question.
Finally.
To take that into account. You didn't think this was a crowd that was hostile to you personally. And you
I
thought
feel
you
like
were
he's
gonna
asked
help them.
this 1,000 different
But yet
ways.
you also
He
felt
has.
you needed a backup, an armed former Army infantryman to protect you. Fair?
What?
The gravy seal.
And yet when he's gone and you can't find him,
With the presence of 2 Army
you don't
infantrymen.
immediately go back, right?
I look for him for a second, and then I think max I look for him for like 3 minutes, and then I try to go back.
And when you couldn't get back straight across the police lines, did you decide to try and go around the police lines? For example, the Ultimate Gas Station is here at
How is this not
60th and Cherry.
compound?
Why didn't you walk down the street here and go over this way and around?
Nothing's objectionable if you never get up and object.
Why didn't you go west over this way and go around?
I don't know. I guess it was very close in time that I was heading back.
I guess I made a decision.
That I was turned down by the police before I got the phone call from Dominic Black. So I guess I didn't have time to really think like which ways I could go around.
You knew the layout of downtown Kenosha, right? Because you said you drove that area the whole time, right?
A little bit.
So you go over to the Ultimate Gas Station and you spend some time talking with folks that are there who are similarly dressed as you. They've got similar clothing, similar weapon, things like that, right?
Similar weapons. I wouldn't say similarly dressed.
But you went over there because you felt that those were people doing something similar to what you were doing that night. Fair?
I thought that would be the safest spot for me to go.
Why did you think you'd be safe with those people?
Because I was alone, and they were, like I said, you're better in pairs. And I didn't want to be alone in that situation.
You didn't want to be alone out here with this crowd that we see on the screen right now.
I did not want to be alone with them.
You wanted to be with the group at Ultimate Gas that had AR-15s like you, right?
I wanted to be back at the car source where there weren't people around.
Right, and we've talked about that, but initially you go to Ultimate Gas
to look for Ryan, yes.
But you also talk to people who have AR-15s just like you, right?
I wouldn't say I talked to them. I asked after the phone call. I asked a guy for a fire extinguisher to come with me.
Remember in the chat, if you're bored, so is the jury. That might be why they're not objecting.
Play exhibit number 11.
I'm making some progress on my summary judgment.
4 minute and 30 second mark.
This is painful.
I hate having to fold the Daubert argument into the summary judgment. I asked the court to let us do a separate motion, but what can I say? Because he just didn't want to see that many briefs. It's a simple argument anyway.
This is the Corey Elijah live.
Is there another trial going on here?
He's in the Ultimate Gas.
Yeah, I mean, this is not how you generally do. Again, if he scored points, they're not going to be very well
That's
remembered.
Ryan Balch standing there in the Ultimate Gas lot.
He also keeps reminding the
Yes.
jury of just what an environment this was, and blaming him for
being brave.
weary of his safety, and also being courageous and helping other people.
How dare you put out those fires? You let that city burn.
Just like our city did.
Look at those gas prices.
We just saw
You can't catch him. He's the
run through
Flash.
This video, correct?
Yes.
I started this video at the 54 minute and 30 second mark. It is now paused at the 54 minute and 56 second mark. So for 26 seconds, Corey Elijah has Ryan Balch on screen, center of this video during that entire time, right?
Yes.
How
And
dare you
run
not see him?
right past where Corey Elijah is standing, right?
Yes.
And Ryan Balch is loitering there in the middle of the screen for at least 26
Ridiculous
seconds,
question.
right?
Who cares?
That's what it looks like on the screen.
And your testimony is you were trying your best to find Ryan Balch at the Ultimate Gas Station at this point because you needed him to protect you?
I was looking for Ryan Balch, but I didn't notice him as I was running away, running towards car source 3.
But for 26 seconds before you start running, he's standing right there, isn't he?
Well, he wasn't there running there for 26 seconds.
When he's standing right there before I run with the fire extinguisher, I'm over here on the phone with Dominic Black.
How long was your phone call with Dominic Black?
About 30 seconds.
So before that, you'd been looking for Ryan Balch?
Before that, I tried to get back to the car source lot number 1.
And you'd also been looking for Ryan Balch?
Seeing if I could see him in the crowd of people.
Because you wanted a partner, a buddy to protect you?
To protect each other, yes.
And in fact, when you borrowed that fire extinguisher, you asked someone in that group to come along with you, right?
Yes.
Because you wanted someone there to protect you when you go down and put out what you think are some fires, right?
Yes.
Because you know that you're running into a crowd that is not friendly to you, right?
No.
That's why you had to say the word friendly, because you knew this was a crowd that would not see you as friendly, correct?
How long
I
have you been on
screamed
that
friendly,
phrase?
friendly because somebody screamed burn inside.
I'm talking about when you crossed 60th. You yelled at them.
At that time, yes, but
And no one in the crowd is yelling burn inside or anything along those lines, are they?
not at that time.
And you also
Object to
wanted someone from that group to come along with you when you're going to go down and put out a fire, because you knew full well that anyone running around like you putting fires out is going to cause a reaction in the crowd, a hostile reaction.
He's answered this question
I
100
didn't think it
times.
would cause a negative reaction. I wanted somebody to come with me because you're better in pairs, and I thought there were other people at that car source before I got there.
Well,
Defense,
Dominic,
get
if
up
you're
and
telling
move
us
them
that
along.
Dominic Black called you to run 3 blocks down the road to put out a fire at the 63rd Street car source, then you must have known at that moment that there wasn't anyone else down there, right?
No.
Why would you need to go if somebody's already down there?
Mr.
Maybe it's a
Black
big
said to me
fire.
on the phone, hey, they're setting fires at the other car source. I need you to get down there and put out the fires. It must not have, I don't think it, I took it as there's not other people down there.
Why would you need to go 3 blocks down if there were already people there?
Objection, idiotic question.
This witness doesn't know the answer, whether there are people there or not.
Oh, an objection.
He told us he
Finally.
thought there were. So I'm probing the basis of that and his understanding at the time. I'll repeat the question. Why would you need to run 3 blocks down to the 63rd car source if you thought there were already people there?
Because my friend asked me to.
I thought there were people there, but Dominic asked me to go down there. I thought that was to put out the fires that were down there.
This video that we're watching is minutes after you've left the 59th Street car source, right?
Yes.
And when you leave the 59th Street car
actually
source, you're
doesn't
with
know
Ryan Balch
Yes.
and then this reporter, Richie McGinnis.
Yes.
And as far as you know, when you leave 59th Street car source, everybody in your group is still back there, right?
At the car source.
At 59th Street car source,
Yes.
everybody's still back there.
Yes.
Joanne Fiedler,
Yes.
Dustin Collette, Dominic Black, Nick Smith, Jason Lakowski, anyone else, they're all still there, right?
At that location, yes.
So none of your group is already down at 63rd Street car source, right?
The other group that showed up after we got done taking the pictures with the, I think I said 2 or 3 vans, I believe they were still down there.
And that was 2 or 3 vans of people that came out with what have been described as melee weapons, right? Like bats and clubs and things like that. Do you recall that? First of all, do you recall that testimony?
I do.
Do you remember seeing those 2 or 3 vans come to that location?
I do.
Do you remember seeing people get out of those vans?
Yes. Like I saw, I think there were 6 people they in total.
And you saw them with weapons?
I saw them with rifles. I don't think I remember melee weapons.
They were armed. Correct?
Yes.
And you believed that they were going to be the ones protecting the 63rd Street car source, correct?
Yes.
So at this point in time in the evening, had anybody told you that those folks had left the 63rd Street car source?
No.
So when you're running with this fire extinguisher, you think there's already a group that's designated to that spot that's still down there, right?
Yes.
So again, why do you feel that you needed to run 3 blocks down there with a fire extinguisher if you thought there were already people down there protecting that property?
He's a good guy.
Because Dominic called me and asked me to go help put out the fires down there.
And in that phone call, Dominic never told you that any of the members of the 59th Street group that you were part of, he never said any of them were down there at 63rd, right?
Yes.
And he never told you that the group that was supposed to be down there, he never told you anything about them, whether they were there or not there. He never mentioned that. Fair?
It didn't come up.
And you asked the people that you got the fire extinguisher from to come with you, right?
Yes.
You were looking for Ryan Balch for backup, right?
I was looking around for him, yes.
You had already tried to go back to the 59th Street location, right?
Yes.
And all of those failed.
Yes.
So then you decide to take it upon yourself to head down to 63rd Street to put out fires. Fair?
I wouldn't say that. I would say I went to go put out the fires that I was there to do. When I say protect the property, I mean by like put out fires. So I went to go put out the fires. I just believe there were people there.
And you brought your AR-15 along?
Yes.
Why?
Because it was with me already.
Yeah, but you'd taken it off earlier when you were treating someone. You gave it to Joanne Fiedler, right?
Yes.
So you know how to take it off, don't you?
Oh
can
my
make a
God.
choice on your own whether or not to go armed with it or whether to give it to the person who is the lawful owner of it on that date, Dominic Black. Correct?
Are you suggesting he
I
stole
didn't
it?
take my rifle off there because
have
there
suggested
was
that
nobody I
multiple
could hand it to. And when I
They're
took it
trying
off to hand it to Joanne Fiedler, I was in a safe spot in the corner of the building where there were people protecting me at that time right there. When I went to go to the car source number 3 to put out the fires, there was nobody I could hand my rifle to that could protect me while I'm providing first aid to somebody.
But you still knew you had it.
My rifle, yes.
You still knew you had it strapped around your body.
Yes.
Right
and
up to the
you
point where I
made a
shot that
conscious
pedo.
decision to bring it along.
Yes.
Why?
Oh, asked and answered. We remember that's a
already
thing.
had
Oh,
it.
okay.
No, the rule in Wisconsin is the 14th asked and answered is when you can
I
object.
don't really understand.
And he's awake.
Well, was it simply that, well, I've already got it strapped on, so I might as well bring it along? Is that what you're telling us? You decided to bring along the AR-15 because, well, I've already got it?
My
Where's you
God.
gonna put it?
I don't think I was thinking like, hey, I'm going to take my rifle off. I wouldn't have because there was people around that could have stolen my gun and I didn't.
Yeah, he's not going to just
Do
like
you-
leave it on top of one of those flaming cars.
Do you leave guns
I
around,
didn't
Mr.
take my
Binger?
rifle off because I was going there alone. I was going to be running there alone, and I didn't take it off because no one else was there to protect me as I was going there. So that's
I
why
didn't
I brought it.
have
answering.
to take it off. Just stop.
Yes.
You don't have
You
to have a
brought it along
reason.
down there because you felt like you would need to protect yourself.
Oh my God,
from
again.
someone else
They're
harming you.
trying to find a gotcha
Correct.
moment that's just not going to
That would
happen.
have happened.
It's not
I would
going to.
protect myself, but
But there's a time for the defense to stand up and say, Your Honor.
Yes.
Said you had
Stop
a-
letting them fish for that
you
moment.
expected you would
The
need-
prosecution's trying to make fetch happen, Your Honor.
It's
Okay, here we
not
go.
happening.
Here we go.
Solid reference.
Hold on.
I'm specifically focusing in on the time period where he is heading down to the 63rd car.
The judge
Street car
objected,
source. I have
I
not
think.
asked you about this yet, Your Honor.
Yes.
Well, go ahead. But, you need to.
That's his big objection. Well, go ahead.
I think the judge was indicating you need to get
When
to your
you
point.
decided to bring
He said,
your
"Well, go ahead."
AR-15 loaded with 30 rounds down to the 63rd Street car source location, what did you think you needed protection against?
My God.
Same
Some
reason the
lunatic like
cops had
Rosenbaum charging him.
I have to protect myself.
You told us just now you brought it along for protection.
I did, but I didn't think I was going to need to protect myself.
In case.
You brought
It's
it along for
deterrence.
protection, but you
That's what
didn't think you
said.
needed
It's
protection.
deterrence.
Binger, do you take
Oh my
condoms on a
God.
date?
Do you put on a seatbelt?
Thank you. Hold on, guys.
I'm trying to clarify the two different answers that I think he just gave, Your Honor.
Well,
No, he didn't.
go ahead. Can you?
Do you understand the question?
Not really.
I asked you why you brought the gun. You said you needed it for protection. I said, protection against what? You said you didn't think you needed protection.
I didn't understand the question because I can't imagine anyone could be this
Help me
stupid.
understand why you're telling us you needed a gun for protection, but you didn't think you needed protection.
I
This
brought
has been
the
like,
gun
what,
for
45 minutes on this
protection,
line?
But what I was saying is I didn't think I would have to use the gun and end up defending myself.
Meaning deterrence.
How
So
many
you-
ways does he
this
have to
video-
say it?
A
He
running.
needs to say that word, that magic word, deterrence.
Yes.
Yeah.
You run across
Same
the
reason you have a
screen.
fire extinguisher. I don't
Yes,
expect my
yes.
kitchen to catch
And then I
fire.
think you
but
testified
it
on direct
does.
that as
Yes.
you made it down the block, I don't remember exactly how you phrased it, but you
Because you've asked it
stopped
58
running and
times.
You walked for a little while. Is that right?
I jogged and walked occasionally.
Carrying the fire extinguisher and your gun.
Yes.
And you're alone at that point with no backup, right?
Yes.
And you testified that when you got down to the 63rd Street car source, you indicated that you came upon that vehicle we've been calling the Duramax. You know what vehicle I'm talking about?
I do.
And you indicated that when you got there,
The jury has to be
you
so annoyed.
indicated.
walked around that
You
vehicle,
indicated.
saw a person that you now know to be Joshua Zeminski. Is that right?
Let's get to Josh.
I walked up to the Duramax. Yes.
You didn't know Joshua Zeminski's name at that point, correct?
No.
You hadn't taken any notice of him at all up until that moment, all night long. Fair?
Fair.
This is the first time that you see that this is a person that comes to your attention. Fair?
Yes.
And you said he had a gun in his hand.
Yes.
And you put the fire extinguisher down on the ground.
I dropped the fire extinguisher.
And then you hear or see Mr. Rosenbaum coming from behind you.
When I get to the Duramax, I step forward, and then Mr. Zeminski turns towards me, and he steps towards me. I drop the fire extinguisher, step back, and that's when I see. I go to run back towards 59th
And
Street,
Mr. Rosenbaum is coming.
Yeah.
and then that's when I notice Mr. Rosenbaum running at me, leaving me with no other. Right, Mr. Zeminski in front of me with the gun. Mrs. Zeminski right there, a couple feet away, and then some other people there.
And then the chase happens. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Have you told us everything
I'd
that
say
you
no.
did
He chased me.
when that
That's what's
situation
fair
just
to
happened
say.
at the Duramax?
Yes.
That's bait.
Can we play the iPad, please?
They're going to zoom in and show him raise the rifle.
This is
on the
exhibit number
enhanced video.
73.